Hello, welcome back. As you can see, I've got really quite a lot of this done. In fact, I've finished the whole of the chassis. That's all put together. That's it, that's all there is. I'll show you a little bit of what I've done, and starting with the underneath really, which is the problem I thought was going to have with it, and indeed it would have been a problem. The reason I've not put the boiler and the cab on top of this yet is because I would have had to turn it upside down to do all that. Let me get a pointer to do all this with the brakes. And basically, in theory, it all goes together quite well. Start from this end, put these two actuators in, which are fed from these two cylinders, on one on each side. And what happens is, when you pull the brake lever in the cab, this actuator pushes forward and pulls this back. In turn, that pulls back all these linkages all the way along and forces the brake shoes onto the wheel. Not a particularly safe way of doing it when you think about it. All it would need is for one of those linkages, and there are a lot of them, one of those linkages to fail and you've lost the brakes on one side, or one of these bars to fail and you've lost the brakes on both sides all the way along. Hey ho. Not the best design in the world, I wouldn't have thought, but there you go. So putting these together and putting them on is not, there's no great hassle with it, but what you've got to do is you have to balance it out really. The brake shoe, brake lever, actuator lever, goes onto this pin here on the chassis, and then it goes into a pin on the bar that goes across and on both sides, and it also has to carry the four pieces, the four actuator bars. So basically you've got quite a balancing act. What I tried it several ways, and the way that I found it was easiest in the end was to glue this on, and with a tiny bit of super glue, glue it to the tyre on the wheel there. Then the same on the other side, and then pop the bar in between them. That holds it all together so that you got time to put the tie rods in. It's time consuming, but you know, hey, that's what we're doing it for, isn't it? And I did that all the way along. None of this turns, so it didn't really matter that there's a little bit of super glue holding a brake shoe onto the tyres there. All the brake shoes are on, as you can see. It's fiddly more than anything. Then I went on to doing all the drive line at the front here, which really is quite intricate, quite difficult. Put the two pistons on, and this piece in the middle here, steam pipe in the middle here, you need to put that in before you glue the second piston on, otherwise you won't get it in, I promise you. You'd have to end up taking the pistons back off again. At the moment it's just loose, it's just sitting there loose. I will glue it so that it's sticking upright before I put the boiler on. So where I started was I put the two pistons on and then started working back this way. Some of the models that I've seen of this, all these connecting rods here have been painted steel colour on the top, but I don't really know why, because they're not going back and forth and anything. This is the only one that goes back and forth, and that in theory is the only one that would be a steel colour, because you'd put grease on it, you'd put grease into this piece here and it would slide back and forth, and that in turn then drives this bar and then in turn the wheels, and the same on the other side. So I've just painted them red all the way along. I think it's quite effective, I think it looks right. Some of the stuff that's on the inside here, some of these actuators, some of these con rods, really very fragile and also extremely difficult to put together. You need to spend a bit of time on it. When you put this kit together, you need to remember not to glue these three bars here. This one down here, and this one here, because when you come to put all this on, if you've glued those into place, you've got a real problem on your hands. Most of it fairly easy. Most of it went in fairly easy. These two girders here that are support girders for this this piece here don't really fit together very well. You can see it better on this one. Maybe you can't. I'll show. There'll be plenty of photographs anyway. But there's a gap here, which no matter what I did, I couldn't fill it. Couldn't prevent it. There's not really much else to tell you about that, to be honest. As I mentioned in a previous video, the electric wires have disappeared completely in there. Bit of red paint and they've gone. Simple as that. And likewise underneath, you can still see them, but hey, you know, it's nobody's going to be picking it up and rolling it around, are they? And front end, all this has been completed. The coupling ties, again, I'm not planning on making it any bigger. I'm not joining it to anything, so I've just glued them together. If you were thinking of gluing it, joining it to a wagon, then you'd leave some of those without any adhesive. Footrests, footsteps, so you can get up onto the chassis. There'll be a ladder there that goes up onto the boiler. The buffers, I can't really find them what colours they are on the colour scheme, so I've gone with black gloss and a little bit of silver where they push in and out when they're joining other trains. That's about it. Gloss on the piston, matte everywhere else, and that's about it. There's a massive amount of work in it, but it's all done there now. And one thing I will say before I continue, show you this now. And basically, look at this here. When the boiler is on top of the frame, I don't know how I can show you there. Here, there is a gap. There's a gap there, and there's a gap there, and there shouldn't be a gap there. So a gap there and a gap there, and they're about 1 millimetre apiece, and on both sides. Now, my theory is that when I put these in, these two supports here, they've gone down too far. I've gone down to where they should be, and they loop right on the inside there, and they loop right on each side. But that one and that one there are definitely 1 millimetre too far down. So what I'm going to have to do is cut a piece of 1 millimetre thick styrene and glue it onto each of the tops of those 4 supports there. This is okay. This seems alright, and I don't know about the ones on the platform yet because I've not tried those. These 4 here, these 2 and this one, support the cab. Oh, these 2 as well, they support the cab and they fit perfectly. This one here supports the back of the firebox, and that one fits perfectly. So it's just these 2 in the middle. I can't remember the part numbers, but you'll come across them. But as you're putting them on, you know them. They're the ones that support the boiler, and as you come across them, I would set them to save yourself a little bit of problem, a little bit of trouble when you get to the stage that I'm at now, and I would set them about 1 millimetre high. Entirely up to you, or you could do what I'm going to do and just stick a bit of styrene on the top of them, which will fix the problem. That is about it. That's my next point of call with this is I'm going to fix the boiler onto the chassis, so it will sit like that and it'll all be in one piece. I think it's really quite a striking combination, that the black and the red. You have to excuse my camera, it doesn't do very, I think I've said this before, it doesn't do very well with red. I don't know why, but anyway, that will sit on there nicely, and when that's fixed into place, then I'm going to get the sand pipes in. Now they're going to be quite difficult to get in between the wheels because they come down and onto the wheels, each wheel. But I think it was easier to do it this way than try and get all that stuff underneath done while you've got the top on there. You're going to scratch your paintwork, you're going to break bits off. Nah, much easier to do it in two separate pieces. So that's where I'm up to. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please leave them in the box below. And it would be fabulous if you could like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time. Ta-ra.